Right, okay. Good evening and welcome everyone to this evening's meeting of the Planning Committee, Thursday the 15th of January 2026. I'm Caleb Tomlinson, the Councillor for Bamber Bridge West, and I'm the Chair of the Planning Committee. And seated to my left is Councillor Elaine Stringfellow, who is our Vice Chair. And before we move on to introductions, I'm pretty sure most of you will have heard the tragic news that our good friend and colleague Mal Donoghue passed on the 6th of January. He was a vice chair of this committee for 4 years, and he was a member of planning for 6 years, and he took it extremely seriously. He loved the planning committee, he loved the nuances, he loved the arguments, and I think it's only right that we stand for a minute's silence in his memory, if you don't mind. Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Okay, committee members and members of the public are reminded that this meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube. If you're attending the meeting because you're a member of the public who has registered to speak, please note you have a time limit of 4 minutes. You will be timed and I will confirm when 4 minutes runs out. You should then finish, or if in the middle of making a point, wind up within a few seconds and finish speaking. You come to the microphone, press the speak button, and when we've opened to committee, voting will be undertaken by the electronic voting system with the outcome shown on the screens around the room and confirmed by our legal officer Liz once completed. Can you please make sure your mobile phones are switched on to silent or switched off? We're not anticipating a fire alarm drill. If the alarm does go off, we should leave the building via the double doors there and we'll meet on the car park to the rear of the building. Okay, thanks everyone. If I can ask everyone to introduce themselves, starting to my left and go round one by one.
Good evening, Elizabeth Thornber, Head of Planning and Enforcement.
Good evening, Elaine Stringfellow, Ward Councillor for Lostock Hall and Vice Chair.
Good evening, Catherine Thomas, Planning Manager.
Good evening, Lisa Mathewson, Senior Planning Officer.
Good evening, Councillor Peter Molyneux, Samlesbury and Walton Ward.
Good evening, Councillor Ange Turner, Broad Oak Ward, Penwitham.
Good evening, Councillor Gleeson, Count Green, Gregson Lane.
Good evening, Chris Lomax, Walton-Dale East.
Good evening, Councillor Phil Smith. I represent New Longton and Hutton East.
Good evening, I'm Councillor Keith Martin from Middlefirth.
Good evening, Councillor John Rainsbury, Hoole Ward.
Good evening, Councillor Hayden Williams, representing Leyland Central.
Ben Story, Democratic and Member Services Officer.
Elizabeth Walsh, Legal Services Team Leader.
Okay, thanks everyone. I have had 2 apologies for absence this evening. One from Councillor Peter Pillinger, who has been substituted by our friend Councillor Keith Martin, and one from Councillor Mrs Mary Green, who has kindly been substituted by Councillor John Rainsbury. So thanks subs, thanks for that. Do we have any declarations of interest on this evening's agenda? No. Okay. I have read and agree with the minutes of the previous committee meeting, so I can propose them. Can I have a second, please? Councillor Martin, thanks for that. So can we go to the electronic vote on the minutes from last month? Technical hiccup. Tell you what we'll do this evening, because there's not many members of the public here. Can we have a show of hands for the minutes from last month? And if you weren't here, you can still vote on them if you wish. You can abstain. Councillor Smith?
I'm abstaining, Chair.
Okay. Okay, can you take that, please?
So those minutes have been approved with one abstention.
Okay, I'll sign those minutes soon. Appeal decisions, please, Catherine.
Chair, we haven't received any appeal decisions since the last planning committee meeting.
Okay, thanks very much for that. So let's move on to agenda item number 6 this evening. Riverside Filling Station, Preston New Road, Samlesbury. Lisa, if you would like to present this application.
Thank you, Chair. The proposed application is for full plan permission for the erection of a drive-through restaurant, which is use class E/sui generis, with associated access, servicing, car park and hard and soft landscaping, engineering works and other associated works. The site lies to the immediate south of the existing Tickle Trout Hotel and the Tickle Trout petrol filling station and services, which are located to the north of Preston New Road. The site is accessed using the same access spur as the hotel and services, with a dedicated existing access off the roundabout with the A59 and the M6, which is junction 31. There's currently an additional access entering the site in an eastbound direction from the A59 Preston New Road. The land currently comprises a vacant area of hard standing surrounded by some vegetation. So you can see on the red line plan there that doesn't actually include all of that site, because surrounding the red line there is existing grass and vegetation with some trees, etc. which you'll see on some photographs in a second. The area of hard standing is set at a lower level than the access road, and the banks rise up to Preston New Road and the adjacent roundabout to the east also. The existing access into the site is currently blocked off by some concrete boulders to prevent anybody accessing the site and using it without authorisation. So this is just an image of the existing site, so in its wider context with the associated motorway junctions and spur roads. You've got the River Ribble, which goes to the north of the existing petrol filling station and hotel at the back of that. So you can see the application site there, and the police headquarters, which is just to the right of the screen. The label, unfortunately, has been covered there by the team's information. So we've got the proposed site plan in front of us now. So the proposed building would provide approximately 50 covers at any one time within the restaurant itself. The proposed building would be single storey in height, of a contemporary design, measuring approximately 30 metres in length by 10.2 metres in width, and would be 5.5 metres in height with a flat roof, which would also house some plant equipment and extraction systems. These extraction systems would be screened by the use of parapet walling. To the immediate east of the building, we've got the attached bin store, which would be bound by a green wall, which is slightly lower in height also to the main building. The drive-through, which you can see there, going round the building, would circle in a clockwise direction, and then to the west of the building we've got 29 parking spaces provided. There's also appropriate levels of disabled parking and bike storage and motorcycling also. The vehicle entrance would be from the northern side of the modified junction access point you can see going into the car park there, which is highlighted, and the area to the northwest there, that's the entrance which is existing, which is going to be closed off, and the curbs would be reinstated. The proposed development would create 70 jobs. It would also be open 24 hours a day, which is consistent with the adjacent petrol filling station also. So you can see here just the proposed landscaping, which would be within the red line plan, as well as the existing vegetation which already exists outside of the red line there. In accordance with section 10 of the officer report, the site is located within the green belt. The NPPF was updated in December 2024 to include hard standing in the definition of previously developed land. The implemented previous planning history and evidence from Google Earth and on-site evidence confirms the site has previously been used as hard standing, which we are accepting of. So in terms of green belt policy, therefore, the site is considered as previously developed land, and therefore a further assessment must be carried out to establish that the development would not cause any substantial harm in relation to openness. Obviously, the proposal will introduce some volume of development on the site. However, with the backdrop of the existing development, which is the existing hotel and services, which is higher in height than the proposed McDonald's, which also, as I explained, is set in a bowl and at a lower level. Within the context it's illustrated, it is concluded, which is provided with a landscape visual impact assessment as submitted, that this does sit within the surrounding context, and with the limited features on site, the development is considered to be appropriate. There is also additional landscaping which will be provided as a planning condition, which is attached to the report. So we've just got some images there in relation to the height, as earlier explained, of the existing hotel building, and then you've got the existing services with the petrol filling station and associated shop, which houses toilet facilities, a small subway and a co-op store. So these are the vegetation with the access, which you've got closed off in the bottom left-hand corner with the concrete bollards. You have got existing double yellow lines on that access. And then to the bottom right-hand corner there, you've got the access, which is proposed to be closed off. So this is the existing hard standing within the site, and then you can see that the banks do rise up where the vegetation is. So it will be screened to the immediate road frontages in some regard. So these are the proposed elevations with a contemporary design. You can see the green wall, which is where the bin store is located. And these are some helpful CGIs which have been provided by the applicants as well, just to show the building in its wider context in the immediate surrounds with the hotel as well. So it is appropriate in its immediate context. And that's just another CGI from the entranceway there. In terms of location, we have got paragraph 97 of the NPPF, which states that local planning authorities should refuse applications for hot food takeaways and fast food outlets if they are within walking distance of schools and other places where children and young people would congregate, unless the location is within a town centre or be in locations where there's evidence that concentration of such uses is having an adverse impact on health, pollution or antisocial behaviour. In this regard, which has been assessed, the nearest schools, both primary and secondary schools, are located respectively. The primary school is over 800 metres away to the west, and the nearest secondary school is 1.7 kilometres away, which is well over the walking distance as implied by the NPPF at 400 metres, and there's no facility anywhere in the vicinity where youths could congregate. There are no planning policies within the adopted local plan which would consider the impact of fast food takeaways and implications for people's health. On this basis of the evidence and the existing services there, we do consider that the proposed development is acceptable. In highways terms, both the County Council and National Highways were consulted because of the proximity of the M6 motorway, and neither have objected subject to the attached conditions. The scheme also utilises the existing access and the secondary access, which will be closed off. There is acceptable parking provision for the nature of the proposed use. The nearest residential dwellings are located on the opposite side of the M6 motorway junction and in excess of 400 metres away. There's been no comments received from any residential property, which, given the nearest property is a significant distance away, is not unexpected. There's no objections in relation to the application, as noted in the report, from any statutory consultees. In policy and technical terms, it is considered to be policy compliant, and having regard to all of the comments, the application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to conditions as attached. Thank you.
Okay, Lisa, thanks for your presentation. We don't have any members of the public wishing to speak in opposition to this application. Don't have any members of the public wishing to speak in favour. We do have the agent, Abigail Knowles. Okay, good evening, Abigail. Okay, if you press your, it looks like a profile of a face with some bands coming out of it. It's the speak button. If you press that, you've got 4 minutes to make your representation. Okay.
Press it again.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members of the Planning Committee. My name is Abigail Knowles of Lichfields, the planning agent for this application. I'd like to thank the planning officer for their presentation and endorse the recommendation of approval. Given the recommendation, I'm not proposing to repeat the merits of the scheme in detail, but would like to touch on a few points. As you are aware, the site is located at the Tickle Trout Services and comprises previously developed land to the south of the existing petrol station. In line with the officer's recommendation for approval, the proposed development is considered appropriate in this location. The proposed new drive-through restaurant would be complementary to the existing uses at the service station, and the high-quality design and landscaping scheme will improve the visual appearance of this currently vacant site. The proposals have been thoroughly assessed in terms of noise, air quality, ecology, landscape and visual impact, drainage and highways, and there are no adverse impacts on the amenity of surrounding uses. The levels of parking and proposed access are acceptable for the proposed use, and the development will not prejudice wider highway safety or the free flow of traffic around the site to the satisfaction of national highways and LCC highways. We have taken comments from LCC highways on board and have amended the scheme by closing the western access to the site. The proposals would also provide a number of economic benefits, which includes providing up to 70 direct new jobs in a range of positions that would be created once the restaurant is operational. There would also be jobs created during the construction stage, and additional business rates will be generated for the council. The restaurant itself will be run by a local franchisee who will develop relationships with community groups in the surrounding area and provide support to local projects. The franchisee will offer apprenticeships and look to build strong community partnerships with local sports teams and other groups. In summary, and as concluded by the planning officer, the scheme accords with the development plan and would not result in any harm in planning terms. On this basis, I hope you'll support your officer's recommendation and approve the application before you this evening. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Abigail. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think I remember it coming first time round this, but certainly with the changes in the planning regime seems to make it an acceptable application. I've read all the details of it, and in fact read all the details on the planning portal, and apparently with up to 90 new employees or 90 jobs created, it's substantial really. And on the basis of that, Chairman, I'd like to move approval along with the conditions that are in the report. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Smith, thanks very much for that. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Chair. I sort of concur with Councillor Smith with regard to the improvement of the area. I mean, for many years we've gone past there, and it's either been full of unnecessary visitors or just a mess, really. So it'd be nice to see that area tidied up, and it will complement the buildings behind it as a complete unit. So I would second approval.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Martin. Do I have any other proposals on this application? No other proposals? Okay, so this is for approval with conditions proposed by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Martin. Can we go to the electronic vote, please?
Members have voted in favour of planning permission to be granted, subject to the conditions set out in the report.
Okay, Liz, thanks for that. Okay, Abigail, you're free to go. Can't beat a big arch. You can't beat a big arch. Sorry about that. Okay, let's move on to item number 7 this evening, which is the Rose of Farrington, 59 Stanleyfield Lane, or as some of you would know it as the Rose and Crown of Farrington. Catherine, if you would like to present this item. Thanks,
Yes.
Abigail.
Right. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this is with me. It's one of Debbie's applications, but she's on holiday at the moment. But it's important that we bring it back for determination as swiftly as possible. So members may recall that this application came before them in the summer. As Lisa will show you on the slides, it relates to the conversion of the former Rose of Farrington, which is located at the corner of Crown Street and Stanleyfield and Stanleyfield Lane. It's number 59. There'd been a scheme approved in 2022 for the extension and conversion of the pub to form 10 flats. Work progressed in implementing that permission, but we received a complaint that actually development had started in advance of conditions being discharged. So we ensured that work was halted on the site and that a further planning application was submitted. And that came before committee in July, and during that meeting we were recommending that the application be approved subject to conditions and subject to the signing of a Section 106 agreement for a financial contribution of £18,000 for the enhancement of public open space in the vicinity of the site. So subsequent to that application, we've been liaising with our colleagues in legal services with regard to completion of that legal agreement. As part of that, we received correspondence from the applicant that said, effectively, you know, given the delays in this particular build project, cost of materials has risen, etc., and we now cannot afford the financial contribution. So we indicated that in order to demonstrate that, effectively, what we would be requiring from the applicant was a viability assessment by appropriately qualified chartered surveyor. That was submitted to the council, which indicated that the profit levels on this scheme would be so low that it wouldn't generate profit in the region that's normally acceptable and recommended in planning practice guidance. So as a result, we don't just accept that information without verifying it. We appointed our own independent viability assessment from our advisors, Kepi Massey, and they reran all figures, looking at the information the applicant provided, looking at the market figures that are normally acceptable for these type of assessments. And they also concluded that given the costs associated with the development, the value of the properties when they're built, that there isn't sufficient profit in this development to substantiate the payment of the £18,000. It is regrettable, but unfortunately this is a factor that we're experiencing, that schemes over the passage of time, the cost of things have risen and the value of properties hasn't risen at the same rate, so viability is squeezed. So we're bringing it back to members. It is important that we do something with this site. I think some of the photographs that Lisa was about to show you indicate that you know, it is untidy at the moment because the development is in abeyance. It needs to be completed. It will deliver much needed residential accommodation. So we are bringing it back to members now with a recommendation that we approve the application with the conditions that are recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Right, okay, thanks, Catherine. I mean, it's an eyesore at the minute, isn't it? And it's got residential neighbours with it, and it's just an empty building, just sat there rotting. Right, I'll open up to committee. Councillor Smith.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think it's a difficult one, this, to be quite honest. And you're quite right in what you say, Chair. It's sat there getting worse and worse and worse. But the way we keep our parks going and our open space going is by financial contributions. Without them, obviously, the whole council would be at a loss, and so would the communities. But in this case, Chair, I think, I mean, I've obviously read the report, and Capamasi have been before here and written reports, and obviously a report we've had to pay for, I guess. I'm not quite sure of the cost of that report, but I don't think they come cheap, having seen some of their figures previously on reports that they've done for this council. So I think on the basis that it wouldn't be fair for the local community for it just to go on and on and on and get worse and worse and worse. And with reluctance, Chair, I will go for approval along with the conditions that are attached to the report. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Williams.
This is a really difficult one. This. This development brings forward 10 1- and 2-bedroom properties which are desperately needed. But on the other side of the coin, it was only 6 months ago that this permission was granted on the basis that it was viable to pay £18,000. Now, there's people do these properties for investment, and some investments are good and some investments are bad. And sometimes you've got to roll with the punches, and if you don't get the same profit that you expect out of something, that sometimes in some areas that's the risk that you take. Now, there's 10 properties here that presumably will be going up for rent, and a slice of that over a period of time for £18,000 isn't an awful lot, to be fair. The other side of it is, I just want to ask the question around the Capamasi report. Is it a binary thing that says the £18,000 is either affordable or not affordable, or is there a proposal that can come back that says, well, it's not 18,000 isn't affordable, but 10 might? Before I'm going to speak again in a minute.
Sorry, the figures were really clear in the assessment of Capamasi that there will be nothing that is affordable on this site. It isn't a matter of fact that a smaller contribution would have been affordable, because if that had been the case, we would have gone back and negotiated that. But it's absolutely clear in this case. And I just come back to the point that this scheme was actually approved in 2022. And unfortunately, because of a lack of understanding in relation to conditions discharge, they did commence, we had to stop them. So I think their financial appraisal of the scheme was actually completed at that point, which has obviously impacted on its viability now.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah, that's the reason I asked the question. I thought you'd have done all the due diligence, so I just wanted that question answering. But obviously, an investor's gone to it 3 years ago, thought it was viable, and then for no fault of ours, it's the developer's fault that they've not gone on with it and know what they're doing. Not the council itself, but the residents of that area that would benefit from that contribution are no longer getting that contribution. I'm not going to go as far as refusing it, but I just wanted to get it out there in a public forum that if other developers are doing this is really not acceptable. At the end of the day, development rules are development rules. We allow people to do development and help the betterment, and these contributions are a vital part of the planning process. So very, very reluctantly, I will second Councillor Smith's recommendation.
Everybody's hands shoots up at once. Thanks, Councillor Williams. I've got Councillor Martin, Councillor Gleeson and Councillor Turner. Councillor Martin.
Thanks, Chair. Just on balance with this, I suppose we have to be a bit pragmatic. I mean, if we say that we want the £18,000, it can't be delivered, so therefore we don't see a development. I mean, it could be sold on and become something else, which could be out of our control. So on balance, I think the input from the 10 or 11 new residents would also benefit local businesses and the infrastructure that's in place as well. It should also see a few improvements to the highways, because obviously it's a one-way street. The only concern I have is that residents may be tempted to go the wrong way out the wrong way street because it's only a short. So I would expect Lancashire County Council to install some signs and some street furnitures to advise that that's not the right way of doing it, and hopefully do a little bit of work on the curbside there where the horrible bollards are. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Martin. Councillor Gleeson.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just coming back to the 18,000. As is the nature of property and rental prices, they go up, and by the time this is built, they may well have gone up enough that there is a profit being made. Will that be monitored so we can see that if it may have been affordable in the future, or is it's what we decide now and that's it? I just wanted clearance on that.
Thank you, Chair. If this was a scheme for 300 dwellings, it would be likely that in the viability appraisal there would be the opportunity during the course of the development potentially to reconsider viability. This is such a small scheme, there won't be that opportunity. As I said, the information that Kefi Massey has provided, and they don't just assess the appraisal that's been submitted on behalf of the applicant, they rerun their own appraisal. And it was so absolutely clear in this case that no, this is unfortunately the position. And I absolutely understand members' concerns about accepting development without the contributions that we would like to see. And unfortunately, it is a fact of life that we do look at applications at a point in time and situations change. And it isn't uncommon, actually, to get applications, even where we've granted permission, subject to a viability appraisal, as Councillor Gleeson just referred to get another viability appraisal submitted during the course of the build programme, which actually does have a further detrimental impact on what schemes can afford. It is unfortunately the nature of the construction market, the costs that rise sometimes disproportionately to the value of what's being created. And I think in this case we've done absolutely what we can do in terms of due diligence for this. And I would say that it is important to deliver this type of scheme because A, we need housing, B, these are primarily one-bedroom apartments, which we know, are something that we don't often manage to deliver. And it is actually a vacant building for which there is no current use. So all those things in the planning balance really lead us to the route that actually the benefits here outweigh, the lack of the contribution.
Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just clarify that, I've gone past the page now, yeah. Is the owner of the land the applicant? And if he isn't, who is? Thank you.
Chair, I wouldn't have that information to hand. It would on the planning application form. It actually has the ownership details. Private. It isn't. Yes, it isn't like a housing association or anything. No.
Okay, I think it's owned by a brewery. I think it's owned by a brewery because yeah. And I mean, if we paid a sum of money to have a valid a report done on whether it's valid to pay us 18 grand, and they're saying no, it isn't. I don't know. Anybody else? Anyone else want? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think we've had a couple of developments in my area over the years, over in Hutton, which have been proved to not be viable, even part way through the development when they found the ground, when they've cleared the ground, that there's been substances in the ground and they've had to come back to us. But quite some years ago, and we had a very helpful and useful planning update and a learning hour, if you like, on exactly this subject, which was quite useful. But from memory, we have asked previously to have a look at the reports, but I believe they're confidential. We're not allowed to see them, from what I can gather. Now, this is from my memory rather than anything else, but the reports that have been produced are confidential from members' view. But if they're not, it would be nice to see it. Thank you, Chair. Just a comment, Chair, rather than anything.
Would you like to comment?
Yes, some of the information is commercially sensitive, as you know, you've referred to, but we generally do try to publish a summary of the findings.
In other words, it's like Donald Trump report, redacted, he redacted. Councillor Molyneux.
Thank you, Chair. I think everyone around the table this evening is conscious that that money would be useful for the community, and the fact that we're not getting it in this case is rather upsetting in that respect. But I'm reasonably confident with all the work that's been done. That we've checked it and we've seen that there's no way that there's going to be anything of it, and the fact that we want you know, these flats are going to be very useful within the community or within South Ribble. So reluctantly, like one or two of us around the table this evening, I would say we'll accept that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Molyneux. Right, I've got two of you missing. Councillor Lomax, do you have anything to add?
After consideration, no.
Councillor Rainsbury, do you have anything to add?
Funny you should mention that. Yeah. Well, it seems well, I mean, it's in your asked. Yeah, I just thinking about what we were saying, and certainly what Callum was saying before. I think it's a small price to pay for the benefits that we're going to get from it. You know, it's not a massive amount of money. I know it is an amount of money, but it's a small price to pay for the benefits we get. And if they don't go ahead with it, we're going to end up with that empty slum. You know, so I think I'm quite happy with approval.
Wonderful. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, if we can go to the electronic vote, proposed by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Hayden Williams. This is for approval for the Rose and Crown of Farrington.
So, members have voted in favour of permission to be granted subject to the conditions set out in the report.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Liz. my button didn't work then because I said this meeting would be over at 18:36 and it's 18:36. So. All right, thanks for attending this evening. Thanks to you subs for coming. The next Planning Committee meeting is on Thursday, the 12th of February. Okay.